On this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, we're dividing it up into two categories or two parts. So don't hang up or don't hit that stop button because we're going to have a two-parter this week. First part, we're going to have Jerry Moll from PKC, and then the second part, we'll have Allen Gingerich from United Kennel Club or UKC. And each one of them are going to talk to you about what's going on with their operations during this pandemic. I'm tired of talking about it. I know you're tired of listening to it, but this is current information that affects you and your hounds and the operations or hunt activities, registration, all of that stuff. So you will want to make sure that you hear it straight from UKC and PKC instead of picking up your information off of social media. But we also give you information on where you can find information on those social media platforms and get the direct scoop from UKC and PKC. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned there. We feel like this is relevant. We feel like it's something that we're seeing a lot of questions popping up on social media. So we wanted to get the main guys from the registries that can give you the answers that you need. Make sure you're going to our website at www.houndsmenxp.com. Go to our Patreon page and get signed up to be a patron. So check us out. Hey, we're here to talk to Jerry Moll, Allen Gingerich, and we want to get this interview rolling. So stay tuned, folks. Here it comes. Information for you. Stay safe. Keep your distance. Don't shake hands. Don't lick doorknobs. See you on the other side. Welcome to the Houndsman XP podcast, everybody. It's another glorious week under quarantine in the United States of America, and Houndsman XP is trying to break down some of those barriers. And I've got my co-host with me today, Steve. How are you, and how are things in Florida?
Hey, Chris. Hey, things are good down here. It's kind of a surreal deal down here, of course. You know, in the area of the world that I live.
It's a surreal deal.
It's a surreal deal. That's right. You can use that, okay? No, you don't have to give me credit. I got a million of them. No, seriously, it's weird. Ella and I this morning were up. The grocery stores down here have special hours for seniors. I'm sure that's the case around the country. Big shout out to our grocery chain down here, Publix Markets. I mean, these people are over the top in what they do to try to accommodate folks. And, you know, they are really into this sterile environment. And so anyway, on Tuesday and Wednesday mornings, we can go in at 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. You know, we line up and keep our 6 feet, our social distancing.
Right.
And we'll take a long list, and Ella and I'll split that up. She takes half and I take half. And we go to the grocery store once a week. And that's what we're doing right now as far as getting outdoors. That's it. Yep. So, you know, for a person that loves the outdoors, as we all do, it's tough, you know, but anyway, it's, you know, our county here out of probably 10 counties up and down the west coast of Florida, you know, we rank down near the bottom.
That's good.
In numbers of cases and so forth. So
that's good.
We're all good so far. Don't know anybody that's been affected directly. So,
well, our guest today, you know, getting back to that senior shopping deal, he sent me a story here this past week and said that a young man was trying to cut that line to get in front of those seniors, and and a little old lady hit him with a cane and rolled him back out into the parking lot. And you know, he gathered himself and he tries to get up there again to get in there, and some old man started beating on him and runs him back out in the parking lot. So the third time he gets up there, somebody in that line said, "Hey, buddy, why are you trying to cut the line?" He said, "Well, if I don't open the door for you, nobody's going to get shot today." And I'll just introduce our guest, Jerry Moll.
You gotta be careful out there, guys.
That's right.
Hey, Jerry.
So we got
good morning.
We got Jerry Moll on here, and in the midst of all of the pandemic stuff going on, we wanted to have Jerry on and talk about operations at PKC and just spend some public service announcement time, if you will, on how the registries are handling the challenges that they're facing, and Jerry has agreed to come on and talk about things at PKC. But before we get there, Jerry, how are you? You doing all right?
Everything's good here. We've kind of been following the directions and staying home and not getting in too much trouble. My mom is 92, and we've been keeping close tabs on her and being very selective about who goes to her house and in her house and so on and so forth. And everybody close to me is pretty good right now.
So your mom is still living at home? She's at home in her own house?
She is at home by herself.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing the same thing with my parents. I haven't seen them. I try to call them and talk to them. I had a real discussion with him the other day. I said, do you want us to come and see you? And Mom was like, not particularly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. I just don't want you to think that, but they're just hunkered down as well. And we're doing the same thing. I mean, Carrie and I are really having probably tomorrow, and we're recording this on April 7th, but tomorrow, April 8th, is our 25th wedding anniversary. And,
wow.
Yeah, and we've probably spent the most quality time the last 10 days that we have since our honeymoon. So we have looking at the positive things that this thing brings. When I drive around communities and I see families together and kids riding bikes, and everybody I talk to, it's like, kids are riding bikes in the street. I'm like, no way, But yeah, I think we pushed the reset button on this culture. I think if we look at it from a positive standpoint, we're going to get back to some family values. I tried to buy seed potatoes yesterday, and the guy at the local garden shop there said everybody's gardening. Haven't seen anything like it in a long time. So.
Well, except for some container tomato plants, that's about all the gardening I can do here.
Yeah.
But the grandparents down here are doing drive-bys and waving at the grandchildren, and things like that. But it's who would have thought this, huh?
No.
Who planned for this?
Right.
Really?
Right.
I wish somebody would have given me a heads up.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, for sure.
Well, Jerry, it's definitely, we keep track of each other and on this big thing we call social media out there, and we talk about it a lot, but that's the way a lot of people are, we're trying to capitalize on it with live videos and getting the message out and keeping the hound hunting community together and promoting this lifestyle. And I know PKC is doing a lot of things down there and had to make some really tough decisions. Some things that probably weren't popular I know they weren't popular in the beginnings because I saw some of those, but overall, we really wanted to talk to you today about how PKC is handling this COVID-19, whatever we want to call it, whatever the name is for it this week, and see how you guys at PKC are addressing this, what your plans for the future are, and just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, first off, I think our situation is just like it is for the federal government, the state government, the local governments, and right on down to businesses and families and individuals, in that, when we started into this thing, there were varying opinions, but most people didn't take it quite as seriously. And then, it got a little more serious, and then they made some changes, and we all made some changes, and that kept evolving and evolving up until, the initial Indiana Governor Holcomb announcement of a shutdown, and then his recent addition of a new shutdown, and then the federal guidelines, I guess you'd call them, of the place and the social distancing and whatnot. But this thing is kind of you wake up every day and it's a new challenge, or you learn something new, and so it's one of those things where you can't go into it with a plan. You every day you react to what's going on, and although we all know it's a very serious situation, we also know that in some respects it's overblown, but even though it is overblown somewhat by the media, you still have to react to your government requirements. So I think the first biggest challenge that we had was deciding to postpone our national championship, which was supposed to be in Salem, Illinois, March 18th through 21st. So that was our first kind of big blow, and then realizing we needed to do the same with the Super Stakes Championship that would be at Sullivan actually this week, right. April 6th through 11th, and then we went on and postponed the Spring Classic in Ohio that was going to be the week of April 20th through 25th. And then, a couple pro hunts, the McAllister, Oklahoma pro hunt and the Junction, Illinois pro hunt, we actually postponed those as well. And those are, PKC administered hunts where we take full charge. Even though we've got a host club, we put on the hunt.
Right.
And, when it comes to the club hunts, the weeknight, weekend hunts, the smaller pro classics and the legacy open events, we decided early on that we were going to leave those decisions entirely into the clubs. One of the reasons being that there is absolutely no way we can stay up with every state and county and local ordinances as far as those things changing on a daily basis. There's no way for us to sit back and know what open events, weekend and weeknight, that we should or could cancel due to this thing. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, clubs, that's your responsibility to keep up with those things. We'll take care of the major events. And if you have local events you need to cancel, let us know and we'll get them canceled. And
I've got a couple questions.
And so that, okay.
So, well, first is a comment, when I didn't mean to jump in and interrupt you. I just didn't want it to get away from me here, Jerry. But
no problem.
Yeah. So I think what a lot of times we lose sight of is the fact that PKC is a business, and when you've got a governor, and it's an Indiana-based business, so when the governor comes out and says non-essential, don't go to work, then it's going to throw some plans in place, regardless of whether, I want to coon hunt tonight or not at a PKC event. And at first, I think you're exactly right. Every day is a new adventure with this thing. We don't know where it's going, and one day you not recommended to wear a mask, the next day you wear a mask. One day it's this, and the next day it's that. The bell curve is flattening. No, it's spiking in other places. Really, there is no way for my business has been affected. Your business has been affected. Everybody that goes to work has been affected in some way or another. So, I think PKC is doing absolutely the best that you possibly can under this current situation. So, the other thing that I have a question about, okay, so you're leaving this thing up to local clubs for open events. How is that affecting state races, national races, things like that? If I'm living in an area where I'm under a travel restriction and my local club says, heck no, we're not having events, and then, 50 miles away, this club's saying, yeah, we're going to have our events, so those guys are having opportunities to hunt their hounds. How is PKC addressing the breed races and things like that?
Well, number one, we understand that completely, that it will will vary based on state races, national races, truck tickets, and all of that. We also know that, you know, on a normal basis, when we're not dealing with COVID-19, that's also true. I mean, there's certain areas of the country that's got, you know, clubs within 150, you know, square miles, whereas some other parts of the country might have one. So, I mean, the availability of events varies tremendously under a normal situation. And you know, it's obviously more varied now. You know, we could go ahead and cancel all our events, but we don't feel like that's the right thing to do either for areas of the country that are less restricted, such as maybe Tennessee, maybe Alabama, and some few other ones, Texas, and you know, some of the other states are dramatically restricted. So from that standpoint, we decided that's going to need to be something that each individual club makes a decision on.
Yeah.
Well, as you're talking, Jerry, I'm thinking, you know, there's always been that, for instance, you know, maybe a certain state closes down for turkey season in the spring when another state permits you to have events and so forth. But I have one little question there about that. Now, here in Florida, and I'm not sure if this is nationwide, there is a restriction limiting gatherings to 10 individuals. Has that, you know, could that be a problem? I mean, here in Florida, if you had a hunt with 15 contestants, you would actually be in violation. And I realize with all they have to do, the officials are probably not out there checking the entry rolls at a night hunt. But was that addressed at all, or did you think about that?
Well, to a certain extent, those are the kinds of restrictions that do vary tremendously. In some places it's 10, some it's 5, some it's 25, others it's 50. And it definitely relates to some of our Legacy Series events have a minimum of 24 entries. So if you're in a state or local area that restricts you to 10, you know, you're just going to have to cancel your upcoming legacy hunt. But if you have a weeknight open event and you normally draw 1 or 2 casts, then theoretically you're good to go.
Yeah.
And those guys are rolling on. But, you know, and there's some areas that are more restrictive than that. And some areas, the state DNR has rescinded their state permits. And especially ones that were permitted to operate or to cast onto federal or state hunting grounds. Some of those have been rescinded. So in those kind of cases, it's even more strict. And you know, and if you look at the PKC board, you can see that, you know, a tremendous amount of the March and April events, just the weekend and weeknight open events are being posted that they're canceled. And and some have suggested that it would be easier to post the ones that are happening than the ones that aren't. And while I certainly understand that thought and that logic, some of these clubs aren't deciding to cancel their hunt until the last day, or the day of, I should say. And so it would be very hard to try to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And so we've recommended that anytime you're planning to go to a coon hunt under the situation we're in, always call the hunt director before you step into your truck and head out the driveway, because there's a possibility, you know, it may have been canceled in the last hour.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it's definitely challenging times.
Well, you know, one thing comes to mind to me here is this thing about social distancing and using common sense. And I would assume in a cast situation, everybody would have their own truck. And that might make it a little more difficult out there in the woods. But, they recommend the 6 feet separation, all of these things. And I guess just common sense comes into play. And I always like the fact that PKC has a common sense rule that says, in some cases, common sense has to supersede the rule. So,
yeah. How is it? Go ahead, Jerry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to kind of, move it on down the road here a little bit and find out, what has been the overall feedback from the PKC membership that you've seen so far? How are they responding to this? Because I haven't been on the Pro Hound forum for a while. So overall, how's the PKC membership reacting?
Well, as with most things, it runs the gamut. We have some people that really support how it's being handled and are 100% on board with that. There's other people that think no hunt should be canceled because we're a tough, robust group of people and we're outdoorsmen and we shouldn't pay any attention to the silly thing. And then the other end of the spectrum, there's some that are recommending we cancel all the hunts.
Mm-hmm.
So it really runs the gamut. Probably the biggest thing that's affected our business, aside from canceling all the events and the income, has been the fact that with the Indiana State edict, we had to close the office from March 25th through today, and then it was extended now, and so our office is actually closed, from March 25th through April 22nd. So nearly a month's worth of the office closures, and what that translates to for the members, that means no registration papers, no events that have been held since right before that. And during the shutdown of the office, none of that information is getting posted up in the standings and the races, on the website. None of that's being updated. So really the only business that's being conducted during these shutdowns is people that deal with me and Roger Dale directly, and nobody being at the office.
So when a club hosts an open event, and I get that final hunt report done, there is no way for there is no virtual posting where I post it up online where you can glean that information and then update races. It has to go to the office, and then that information is updated. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even if we had an online way to report that, it would still go to the office. So even if that was the case, we'd have to still have the office open to make all that stuff happen.
Yeah. Steve, you had, I know this was a topic that you wanted to talk about with registrations and things like that.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind there, Jerry. And I'm just thinking here, with virtually everybody working from home now, even my local TV station that I watch in the morning just to get the weather and a few tidbits before they get into the heavy stuff. They're all working from home. The weatherman, the anchor man, the reporters are out, and about in the communities. Did you give any consideration to that? I mean, it would look like that you'd be able to access your computer files and so forth from home. Is that not possible?
Well, it's not impossible. With technology today, we could make that happen. But as the PKC system is now, it's not accessible from from the employees' homes, And when you're talking about those other businesses, they're multi-million-dollar businesses, and they're set up
Sure.
to do that kind of thing.
Sure.
Whereas you got a 5-person office, it's a small business kind of set up, and they're working off an Access database, and it's really not set up to
not sophisticated enough to do that at this point. Yeah, and I see that, Jerry, because you're not set up to have all this stuff virtually entered. If all the clubs were set up to submit all the reports via computer, it went into a program that someone could access from home and all that, then that would be possible. Yeah, the question was basically, I guess, to let you speak to that, because, I certainly understand what you're saying is true. And well, one thing I noticed, I believe it was in a post from you on social media about honoring postmarks and things like that pertaining to getting these puppies nominated and so forth by the deadlines and all. You want to address that a little bit?
Sure, and that what you're pointing out there is definitely the case. We won't place any hardships on any members due to this shutdown itself. In other words, if there's registration papers, litter registration, a deadline on your 6-month or 9-month Super Stakes fee for a pup, DNA, this and that, anything that is date sensitive, go ahead and send it in. We'll honor the postmark, even if we don't get it, even if we don't address or open the envelope, for 2 weeks after you send it. As long as it's postmarked by the deadline, we will honor that, and there'll be no additional fees there.
Okay, I've got another question pertaining to that, and then I'll let Chris have the reins again. But we all tend to look at our personal situations. I've got a pup here that is an 2018 model. He was scheduled to hunt the Super Stakes this spring. Will that year just be lost to him? Was there any discussion about extending the ages on these puppies that missed it this year? Or, I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm just wondering what type of discussions you guys may have had about that.
Well, as you can imagine, we do discuss that type of thing just about every day. And, harkening back to our original thoughts about that, about everything changing on a daily basis, the plan right now, and we hope that we can execute this plan, but the plan right now is to actually have both the national championship and the spring Super Stakes yet this late spring, early summer, when this thing settles down. But the quote, when things settle down, is really up in the air.
Sure.
But
one more. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jerry.
Assuming that we can, the national champion qualifiers are locked in with one exception, and that is if a dog earns 10,000 or more in PKC earnings, they are eligible to hunt in the upcoming national championship. And just say the national championship is later summer, any dog that achieved that $10,000 between when the national championship was supposed to be in March and then would be eligible. So it could qualify more dogs there. And the same respect with the spring Super Stakes. You have a pup that's Super Stakes eligible, but you didn't have this money won to be at Sullivan this week competing. Well, if the Super Stakes, spring Super Stakes, is held later this summer, you will have right up until the date of that hunt to win your qualification money.
Wow.
Awesome. Awesome. That was going to be my next question, because I was one of those guys, and I used the excuse of being in Florida, but, that didn't have his pup ready. So that's good to know for sure.
Well, we're taking away some of your excuses.
I see that. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what?
So
go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead.
I was just
going to say, hopefully that'll give some people more of an opportunity to participate. Not only but obviously from the time that we find out things are settled down enough to reschedule that hunt until we have it, there's going to be a lag time in there. So hopefully during that period, then the open events will be back to their full schedule. So not only is it giving some people a little extra time now, but there is actually being held in the area right now. There still will be, a lag time there where they still can go get their qualification money won after we announce a new date.
Right. Well, that's some good stuff, and we are getting a little bit of technical stuff going on here with. I'm not sure if you're moving around or if it's internet connection, but I watch Fox News and they're struggling right now and they've got multi-million-dollar setups and operations. So we're just going to have to deal with what we've got here as well. But if it gets too bad, we might break it off. And I can't think of anything else. Steve, have you got anything else or that you want to throw in there?
No, I really don't. Having been over there on that side, Jerry, I know that those conversations have to be ongoing. I know you guys are really looking hard and working hard to be as accommodating as you possibly can. And knowing your organization as I do, I know that you have the best interests of all your members and their families at heart. And I'm standing over here applauding what you and Roger Dale and the other, the national directors and everybody is doing, because you've been dealt, as we all have, a very difficult situation to deal with. And I think I'll go on record saying I think you're doing a great job and really appreciate that. And I do intend to be at that Super Stakes.
And I'll echo that as well, Jerry. I know that I know you personally, and right now it's easy to sit back and get our tinfoil hats out and think that everything's a conspiracy. But from knowing your character and working with you as much as I have in the past, I know that's not the case. There is some tough decisions that have to be made by different people, but I'm glad that you were able to come on today and talk about some of the things that, hey, this is what we're doing. We're trying to deal with it on a daily basis. So kudos to you guys. You're doing a great job and with the hand you've been dealt. That's for sure.
Certainly appreciate that, and we can't say we make every decision correctly, but we can say that every decision is made with the membership in mind.
Right. And I know that to be true.
Sure.
I know that's where your heart is. So you got any other things you want to get out there? Anything we missed, Jerry? Anything that you want PKC membership to hear?
Well, I just have a general comment, and that is that, we talked a little bit about, Chris, you brought up the fact that, there are some bright spots in this situation we're in about families getting back together and spending family time and being outdoors and so on and so forth. And the other thing that I want to point out, which I know both of you know well, and that is it's very noticeable that our nation gets back to God, and I think that is a very important thing. And
yeah, I'm not sure where you're at, Jerry, but we're losing you, and I get the idea what you're saying there, and I'll just I know where your heart is, and I know that that I am seeing a resurgence of the Christian faith and people turning back to God. My news feed is full of it. We're really looking at our priorities and determining what is what's most important. and maybe it's not a new truck this year. Maybe it's the health of my family. Maybe it's not a vacation this year. Maybe it's making sure that I'm doing my part as a useful member of society, and I see a lot of that stuff too. Steve, you got any closing thoughts?
Well, no, Chris, other than just to, give you guys an amen, so to speak. I'm an old Southern boy, about what you're saying about faith. And these are the times that try men's faith. But those of us who have that faith and are real well grounded in it know that somebody, a power higher than us, is in charge. And that's what we're going to go with. And that's how we're going to see this thing through, and the light at the end of the tunnel, regardless of what the media says, is not an oncoming train. It's a better day, and I'm looking forward to getting out in the woods with my hound, and hopefully it'll be with one of you guys.
Yep. And I just think we ought to leave it right there. I mean, it's easy to get down in the mud and wallow around in it, but we can't stay there forever, and some things are just out of our control. And as much as I would like to have that hound out there and getting his picture taken, sometimes that's just not the most important thing that we're doing right now. So if you're able to hunt and you can get out there and hit a PKC event, check that at prohound.com. Make sure the events aren't canceled, and have faith that PKC is going to honor their commitments to you as a membership to make sure that you're eligible for super stakes and your litter registrations and things like that. So I'm really glad Jerry came on with us today and clarified a lot of that. And this is going to go out in a really timely manner. So this will be pretty current information for PKC. If not, make sure you're following the ProHound message forums at www.prohound.com and follow Jerry Moll on Facebook. How you like that, Steve? You done?
Sounds
all right.
Good.
You back, Jerry?
Sounds good. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I thought we lost you. I thought we'd lost you to the digital world there, but I'm glad you came on, and we'll be in touch. If you need anything, make sure you reach out to us, and let us know if there's anything we can get out there for PKC. If it's something that's timely that you needed out there, we're more than happy to step in and help you with that, Jerry.
Appreciate it much. Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Thank you, Jerry.
Right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm at home, and my closest neighbor's at least a quarter mile, probably more like a half mile. Mm-hmm. So I've got my social distancing down.
Well, there's only 3 coon hunters in Florida, and none of them live close to me, so I'm doing all right
here. Yeah.
Well, hey,
it's a crazy time, isn't it?
Yep.
Who would have thought it, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy, man. It's something totally unprecedented, I guess. Just never would have thought.
Right. Well, how is it affecting operations there at UKC, Alan?
Are we on already or what?
Oh yeah, we're on, and I'm rolling.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to take people by surprise these days and catch them with their pants down purely for entertainment value.
He's sneaky.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah.
He's sneaky, Alan, for sure.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, well, obviously the state of Michigan is under a stay home, stay safe mandate, and that's been the case since March 24th, and that remains in effect until Monday, April the 13th. At this time, we've not been advised of any further date extensions with that regard, But yeah, the UKC office is closed, but all of our employees are working remotely from their residence. Approximately a third of our 40-plus employees have been working from home since about the third week in March. And then the office fully closed the following week with all employees now working from home since then. So, but but as work-related mandates are lifted, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll likely see some employees shift back to the office, but we'll probably do that in stages. And again, hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think every day's a new adventure of what's really happening here, and it seems like every day you watch the news, they're contradicting themselves, and so I think the main message is just be patient here. We've got to be patient, and I know that UKC isn't closed down because they want to be, and definitely not because there's any kind of conspiracy to end coon hunting in the United States, because UKC doesn't want that. So I think that's the main message. The first half of this podcast is going to be Jerry Moll. We talked to him from PKC, and we just want to give UKC an opportunity to get their message out there too. It's going to this episode will air what is it, April 13th? Is that the right date? Next Monday? So we're recording on April 7th right now, and we want to get a timely message out there because, a lot of people are really uncertain about what's going on, and we can help bring some stability into our community there, Alan. So I really appreciate you coming on. And if people don't know, this is Allen Gingerich from UKC that agreed to come on with us today. So thanks, Alan.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate that, and for this opportunity and a little bit of airtime on your channel, so to speak. But yeah, you're exactly right. We want our customers to know that UKC is fine. We're moving along, and everything is business as usual for the most part. We're just working from our home per state mandates, but we're still fully operational. And again, we encourage folks, like you mentioned, to continue to call in, email, submit their registration paperwork, etc. And all of those received items are and will be processed, even though slightly delayed. Now, our mail is actually being held at the post office in Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. And once a week, they have got folks going up there and getting that mail, bringing it in, scanning all of those items and getting them out to the proper workforce or the employees to process them. So, but really, it is really working much better than I may have anticipated to begin with. We had a few things the first couple of days to get some bugs worked out, but I'm really surprised with the way it has worked out. It's worked out better than expected, that's for sure. And really, at the end of the day, I think we can learn something from this as well. Maybe open some doors for us with some of this stuff. So yeah.
You mean where you don't have to drive to the office every day? That's what you're really saying.
That's
right?
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. I want to be like Steve, just work from home all day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we don't use that word work, but whatever I do at home. That's for sure. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, it sounds like you're really ahead of the curve on some of this stuff, Alan, and I think you are. I'm sure down the road we all envision a time when everything will be done online and you can work from wherever. My son up in Chicago's been working at home. He works for a company that does all the logistics and so forth for the McDonald's Corporation, the restaurant people, and they're all the communications group that he has there are working from home all over the world, really. So, it's
right.
That's the thing that's going on. I know Chris is going to have some questions for you, and I have one or two, Alan, so I'm going to let Chris take the lead on this. But I think my questions for you that might be helpful to UKC clients or whatever would be concerning some things about the events. But Chris, what do you got? And I'll hold this back for a while.
Well, I think Alan's got several talking points that he sent me. He's real well.
Oh,
he's
good.
Very well prepared here. But you talked about the thing that I want to touch on, since it's fresh, and we just did talk about it, is the registration process. You're checking mail once a week. If what's UKC doing about their deadlines for litter registrations, late fees? Steve asked that of PKC in the first part of this podcast, and we'll just put the same question out there for UKC. Have we lost everybody?
No, I'm here.
We've lost Alan.
We have lost Alan.
I can hear him now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Alan. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I could hear you as well. But to answer your question, Chris, without getting into specific details for everything, we are certainly considering a lot of those late fees and things like that. So clubs shouldn't have to worry a whole lot so long as they did their part. And as far as us not receiving them in time, we will be considerate of all that. Okay. Absolutely.
So I've got a litter of I've got a litter of pups here. I'm getting close to the deadline. If that envelope is postmarked prior to the deadline, is UKC going to honor that without imposing any kind of fees on it due to the current situation?
Yeah, they will. Absolutely, they will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They will.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm glad you asked that question. That's a good one. I didn't put that in my notes here to put out there, but no, that's exactly the case, and that's true for a lot of things. We'd still want them to get their things in time. If they do their due diligence, and if it's just a matter of us not having received it in time because of the situation we're in, nothing to worry about there.
Yeah. So what are we looking at on cancellations for UKC events?
Well, obviously we were getting a lot of them. That's been the majority of our workload, seems like in the last 2-3 weeks or whatever, but we've made it very simple, and we do want clubs to let us know if they need to cancel their event. Obviously we usually have a no cancellation policy for events that are already advertised, but obviously this is totally different here again, making provisions for that. But they can either email us, and if they do email us, give us as much accurate information as they can. In other words, what I'm getting at, tell us, instead of just saying the Marion, Ohio club wants to cancel their April events, give us the name of your club, and what would be better would be the club ID, along with as much information as you can. The easiest way is simply to call us. Mm-hmm. And we have 3-4 phone lines open that are taking those calls, and all you got to do is tell us your club ID, and we can do it in a matter of 2 minutes. We can get you taken care of. But right now we're only scheduling April and May events, and actually we've just opened it up to where we're now also canceling May events. Mm-hmm. And here again, this is the decision of all clubs based on their state mandates. So give us a call. We can do it in no time, but all canceled events are carried over to the club's 2021 schedule. So they don't need to worry about losing that date that they did cancel. They'll have that date back on their schedule for 2021. And then secondly, any clubs that have already paid their license fees up front, they'll also be refunded for those. So some clubs are asking that we transfer that to maybe a later date for them, and we'll work with them on that. We can do that as well. So, but otherwise, if they don't request that, they will be refunded any of those license fees already paid. But we also suggest to give UKC at least 1 week notice to cancel. It's easier for us to cancel on short notice than to have mandates lifted and reschedule a canceled event. In other words, if mandates would be lifted on an event they've already canceled, it's going to be hard for us to reschedule it again for, let's say next week. So it's easier for us to cancel on a short notice versus the other way. So I say that to suggest that maybe you hold off on your May events right now until until the time gets closer is what we would suggest.
Okay, so that's good direction for the club. I'm not a club officer or a hunt director at a club or a master of hounds, or I'm not in charge of that part of this, but I've got an event that I was thinking about going to this weekend, and how do I, as a PKC customer, check to find out if that event is actually going to be held?
Freudian slip there.
What did I say? Did I say PKC?
Yeah.
Sorry, Alan.
No problem.
Yeah, well, look, I'll just correct you. Yeah, if you're interested in a UKC event,
there you go.
Yeah, Chris, it'd be very crucial that before you just take off and go to an event that is on the schedule, or you saw advertised in the book or something, it's very crucial that you first check our events calendar on our website.
Okay.
And that's simple. Go to the website at ukcdogs.com. And depending on whether you're looking for a coonhound, a beagle event, a squirrel hunting event, or whatever, click on the coonhounds if you're looking for a coonhound event. And from there, you'll see the events calendar. And you'll see any event that is canceled, it's still showing up there. But we do that for a reason, so there's no confusion. So you click onto the club name, and then from there, you will see it clearly noted if the event is canceled. And you'll see it in the directions portion of the event details on the website. So, yeah, it's very crucial that you check that before you go. And I think this whole deal through here, a lot of people are learning how to do that pretty quickly. And so far, we're not really hearing any complaints of people going to an event that had been canceled. Matter of fact, I've not heard of any. So I think it's working pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the main thing is being able to have that access. So, yeah, that's great that's being current. Mm-hmm. So if I see anything for this week, if I am planning on heading out to a UKC event this weekend, then if it's on the website today, I should double check that day, but I shouldn't change my plans at this time.
That is correct. Once we get the notice to cancel an event, we've got our system set up to where that updates every hour.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be a problem at all. And now I would suggest, if you're going to an event on Friday night, Thursday you checked it and it's still good, I would still suggest you check it on Friday before you go.
Okay.
We're not getting very many that are that close, but we have had a few. Last weekend we had, I want to say, like 2 Friday night events that we canceled earlier in the day on Friday. So just before you go, just go on there and check it. And for most people, that's pretty easy. Most have that access on their cell phone, so that's what I'd suggest. Make sure you check it before you go.
Sure. Steve, you got anything?
Well, no, that's great, and I think that just speaks to the excellent system that UKC has in processing events, having been there and know a little bit about the foundations of that system, but you guys have taken it to a whole new level, and that's great, Alan. I think in this day, we all know to check our phones, check the schedule, that sort of thing. We check it for everything else, so why shouldn't we check it before we jump in the truck to drive an hour or whatever? Yeah. I just wonder how you said this is all left up to the individual mandates of the states and so forth. Have you guys given any consideration to cautioning the clubs to observe the limitations on numbers of entries they might be able to take at an event or so forth? We talked about that earlier with Jerry. Here in Florida, we have a 10 limit, 10 persons in an assembly. Do you guys address that at all?
We have not really with the clubs. That's a good point, though, and it's something we kind of rely on the clubs to follow their own mandates. What those are. But I would mention this, that I know in Texas last week I had a call from a club that canceled their event in Texas, and they had another club had an event scheduled the previous Saturday night. And they ended up with a lot more entries than they expected, to where they were way over that. And what they were getting is guys driving a good distance just because they had an event that wasn't canceled. So the club they got way more than they bargained for. So that's maybe something to think about, Just because you might not have more than a 10-dog hunt and you're going through with it, something to think about. You may end up with a lot more than you expected because of guys kind of looking around for a hunt to go to, and kind of find themselves in a bit of a pickle, that they hadn't expected.
Yeah, so they haven't got the guides or they haven't got the judges lined up or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is more on them being way over their what's allowed in their state as far as mandates go. Way more than 10 people.
Yeah, getting back to Steve's point. Mm-hmm. So, but I could see how it could also cause a problem if you usually run, 3 casts of dogs or 4 casts, 5 casts, whatever it is, you're planning for that. And then all of a sudden you got 10 casts and you don't have guides. Wow. Right. You know, then you got to start really.
Well, yeah. But, you know, this is also probably a good time to put this little plug in. You know, it's these current mandates are a good example and a reminder for clubs what our event policies are. And that is, you know, in addition to following procedures and rules in effect for an event, clubs must also follow their local and state laws and regulations as they apply to their event. And generally that applies to having their proper state and local wildlife area permits if applicable, or as in this case now, mandates related to this COVID-19 situation.
So what is the recourse for the club? If it's like Florida, like Steve said, you're not allowed to have over 10 and you've got 15 people standing there.
Well, you know, I think we would be concerned, as the club should be concerned, that they may, if they're in violation of it, you know, the liability of that is what they seems like they should be concerned about, and we would be concerned of that as well. You know, it's no different than clubs not getting their state permits, I guess, and things like that. And really, if something like that becomes an issue, it may very well be something where UKC would no longer approve events for a club, you know. So it's a good thing to consider, and I don't think a lot of clubs think about some of those things like they should, maybe, you know. But
well, here
ahead,
let me jump in, Chris.
Yep.
Here in Florida, we're under a stay-at-home order. You know, so I'm thinking out of the box here a little bit.
Right.
And, you know, I just wonder, hopefully, you know, it won't come to that, but I would certainly feel bad about a club that was holding an event and all of a sudden somebody came along and started writing tickets, you know, to people for even being there. So that presents a whole new challenge to the registry. And I think UKC would certainly want to reserve the right to cancel events if they knew that was a possible problem, you know. So it's crazy. I mean, you know.
And you're exactly right. It may be. It's kind of hard for us to keep up with all the mandates of every state. You know, as you're probably well aware, there's some that are a lot more strict right now than others are. You know, but so we need the club's help with that stuff. And absolutely, we would suggest they follow those mandates. But yeah, those stay home mandates, that pretty much should put a club out for sure, you would think. Hey, unfortunately, we're getting a few that just kind of have that, I don't know, for the lack of an excuse my term here, but kind of take the middle finger approach to some of this. And I feel that's just a ignorant approach to it.
Yeah. And I've seen some of that response on I hear what you're saying. I see some of that response on social media about a lot of this stuff, but I just had a conversation with a guy I used to work with. His wife is a nurse, and I'm not going to say where, but they're not looking for this thing to peak until probably the week of the 23rd, 24th. But they just brought in this is gory to think about, but if you're one of those guys that's sitting there thinking that this isn't real, they're bringing in refrigerator trucks to her hospital because they're running out of room in the morgue, or they plan that they may. So they're making those. This is not something that to take lightly, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think right now we just need to be patient, sit back, and if I don't get that night champion win on my dog this month, then go hunt him some more, because it's not going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt you, and you'll have an opportunity once the air clears here a little bit.
Well, you're exactly right, and I agree 100%. You're exactly right. You know, it's hey, I was probably like a lot of other people to be, you know, the middle of March. I'm thinking, okay, this is politics and the media. Here's where we are now, but you know what I mean. But yeah, you know, a lot of us stuck our foot in our mouths probably with some of those ideas. But yeah, but you're exactly right, Chris. You know, it's not the end of the world. You know, a lot of people can still go out and hunt, and this is, hey, just redo your schedule. It's also a good time to do things that maybe you didn't get a chance to do, and that is some of the things that are maybe more important than just hunting. Hunting will be back around. There are night hunts and all those hunting events they'll be there when all this goes away, so.
One of the things that we kind of started to, I kind of kicked the top off that anthill, but was the social media platforms and some of the comments we're seeing out there. What are you guys seeing at UKC?
Well, probably a lot of the same things that you see. One of the things that I see is, some of the hunters suggesting that the registry should just cancel all of the events until further notice, and I understand that, and it makes sense it makes sense, but the other part of it is some of these states aren't as affected as others, just like Michigan. Right now, I'll go back to Michigan. Right now, we're under a mandate, a stay home, stay safe mandate, and we actually need a authorization, a form, if we are out doing something, or we stand. Right now, they are fining folks. They're saying they can $500 and $1,000 fines if you don't. If you're out and about when you shouldn't be, so that's kind of a serious thing. But going back to some of the things we see on as far as canceling all events until further notice, it just wouldn't make much sense to say all events are canceled when states like New York, Michigan, or Illinois remain under a statewide mandate, while Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, and maybe some other states are back to business as usual. So why would we hold off on? Why should we hold off on everybody being in this same? Everybody have their events canceled when maybe they can start having them.
Mm-hmm.
So that just canceling everything doesn't seem to be the better idea.
Yeah.
To me, anyways.
Well, some of the things that may be affected, and maybe you can address this, are things like qualifications for the World Championship or Triple Crown, the Winter Classic, some of the other. Are we going to see anything that's going to disrupt those types of races within UKC?
At this point, no. We're things like the Tournament of Champions are still on go. The World Championship is, still on go as of now. Obviously a lot of RQEs have been canceled,
mm-hmm.
and our first priority with canceled events, as far as rescheduling goes, our first priority will be to try to reschedule major events followed by world qualifying events. So as of right now, those events that aren't yet affected as of today that remain on the schedule, I'm talking about major events is like English Days in June, American Redbone Days, Youth Nationals in July. Autumn Oaks is obviously still on schedule, as well as the Coonhound World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But we have already rescheduled some of the canceled events from March and April, some of those major events. And some of those include now Black and Tan Days, which has been rescheduled for June 17th through the 20th, same location still.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Tick Days, they are August 6th through 8th rescheduled. Leopard Days is rescheduled for August 27th through the 29th. St. Jude was another big one, and they have rescheduled for the weekend after Autumn Oaks, which is September 11th and 12th. That's for
Mm-hmm.
St. Jude. National Redbone Days is moved down to the first weekend in October. Walker Days is canceled altogether for 2020, and they're not looking to reschedule that one for this year. But I would encourage treeing walker folks to go to their website at twbnfa.com, and they have all their everything posted there in regards to dogs that had maybe qualified for their Lee Crawford this year,
mm-hmm.
or their pup hunt. They
Okay.
have got some provisions in place for and a new schedule for that, which I think is going to happen. It's going to be implemented. They're going to be eligible to hunt next year at Walker Days. So all those dogs that are qualified for those things, it's not going to be all for naught. So, but to check out their all those details on their website.
Steve, what you got to say?
Same way with, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Finish that thought, Alan, and then I have a question for you.
Yeah, same way with Purina Nationals. That's one that's come up quite a bit, and that one is still pending. We've got quite a bit to work with there. Obviously, the folks at Purina and everything to reschedule that right now. They're kind of not interested in scheduling anything in stone until we get a little further into this and get a little more information, I guess. But so we are kind of behind the scenes a little bit, getting some ideas together, and things like that. But I would suggest at this point, those that are qualified for the Purina Nationals, not to worry about it. We're still going to try to get a date scheduled for it. And as soon as that happens, we will get the word out to each individual that is qualified for that. And there again, deadlines for advanced entries, those will all be reset. They don't need to worry about any of that stuff. We already have a bunch of those entries, and that's all perfectly fine. But we actually, a couple of weeks ago, we've already told some of them, hey, if you don't get it sent in before the deadline, that's going to be fine. We'll work with them on that. So we'll get more information out on that event as soon as we have more.
Hey, before we shift gears into Beagle events and some of the other UKC programs, Steve, have you got some questions you wanted to throw out there?
Well, I wanted to throw this one out to Alan, and certainly the answer may be, well, we just haven't thought about that yet. But the Tournament of Champions is obviously the big news in the coonhound world, and something that a lot of people are really excited about for this year. And UKC giving away $200,000 and all that entails. Do you foresee, let's say in a worst case scenario, we don't get to reschedule these events, would that perhaps be withheld for this year and maybe rolled over to next year? Or have you given any thought about that at all?
Well, we at some thought, and that could be a possibility. At this point, no. At this point, it's still a go. But if it goes on a whole lot longer, I think we would need to go to the drawing board and consider our better options. Because there's a couple things that play a huge part in that. Obviously, one is the income that comes in the per dog fees that help fund this thing. And the other one is not enough events for people to even get qualified, get their dogs qualified, get those 5 cast wins that qualifies them for it. So, if it were to, like I said, as of right now, it's still on go as is. But if it were to go quite a bit longer, I think we would be forced to go to the drawing board and take a good look at that.
Sure.
What would be in the best interest of it. And I think, Steve, for the most part, I think with all this, and I think you've probably seen that, the whole hunting community has been pretty easy to work with some of these things. And it's very encouraging, and I think everybody's in the same boat, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your work or your hobbies or what have you, but there's a lot of things affected. And I think instead of, people just getting upset over this and that, it seems like people are pretty considerate of things. So, and that's good and nice to be able to have that, and people are understanding of the situation that everybody's in.
Right.
And some are much bigger than others, and if it really came down to it, this Tournament of Champions could very well be one that is kind of a big deal, and a lot of logistics behind the whole thing.
No doubt.
Keeping it in perspective. I mean, you're looking at Major League Baseball that is trying to figure out how they're going to have a season this year. All of those businesses that are wondering if they're going to be open in July. So there's people out there that are legitimately trying to figure out how they're going to buy groceries in the future. And I'm glad to hear that the public is being somewhat understanding. But Steve, you're a baseball fan. What years did Major League Baseball not have a world champion winner? During World War II, right?
I think so, during World War II. Yeah.
This
yeah,
is the epic event of our lifetimes. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. Hopefully my kids will never see anything like this again. But yeah, it's not as easy as it's not an easy equation to solve here. That's for sure.
There's a couple things here, thinking about the publishing business. And of course, you guys are in that with Coonhound Bloodlines and your other publications. And that's a challenge that you have to be facing, I'm sure, because with no events, what do you write about, And I think that that's all going to trickle down. And here's a challenge that I would give to anybody that's listening to this podcast, is that now is the time for you to show that you support this lifestyle, this coon hunting thing or beagling thing or big game or whatever it is by buying a subscription to one of these magazines. Because, without the advertising info or income and so forth, that's just another phase that's going to be challenged like everything else, and,
It is. Yeah, it is. And you really, Steve, if you think about it, when we're sitting here for the last couple of weeks canceling events, you don't really realize, or you kind of forget how many events you actually have in the heart of the year, March, April, May, for most hunting events, how many events you're actually canceling. And when you look at everything behind it and everything that's affected, man, it's a pretty big deal, and a lot of businesses are in that same boat, but yeah. But hey, here again, it's good that I think UKC is in a good place, and we'll get through it. We're doing the best that we possibly can and making the best of a situation that we're in, but I think our customers should know that, hey, we've got a solid foundation here, and it's once we get this behind us, we're going to take a huge hit, obviously, but good thing is I don't see us going out of business, so that's a good thing. Like a lot of small businesses, that's the bad thing you're seeing now. A lot of small businesses being affected by this.
Chris, I was thinking about this in the big picture thing, and Alan just mentioned this. This is probably our real challenge for our generation. If you look back, there was a pandemic back in 1917 or so forth that swept the country. I was writing a story, an article one time, and I discovered that and really didn't realize it, that this country went through a major flu epidemic back in those days. I mean, it was major and very, very serious. And then we look at our parents that went through that Great Depression. My dad did. Nobody had any money, but they survived. Right. Then they were faced with World War II, and the tremendous impact that had on the entire country, the economy, everything else. And then, the Vietnam War, all these things, our country has always survived these things. And we will survive this as well, but maybe this is just the challenge that falls on us now, and that for us to step up and say, it's tough, but we can do this,
And that's where go ahead, Alan.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say that's where the toughness of this hound hunting community and this lifestyle gets us. We're still going to hunt. We're still going to get those hounds out there. And during the Great Depression and during World War II and, the Spanish flu of, I think it was 1917, 18, the heart of the epicenter of that was in Annapolis, Indiana, for the United States. And we got through it. But during that Great Depression, the people were looking for things to become involved with, and that's the hope on the horizon. Is this is a golden age for the hunter, and we've seen that pendulum swing a long way this way. Well, this is a great opportunity for us to help swing it back to the center, and people would flock to baseball stadiums and sporting events and horse racing events, and there isn't any reason why we would think that we couldn't carry on our traditions and lifestyle with our hounds the same way.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You know, kind of going back to what Steve said, some of those pandemics, you know, of throughout the years, you know, back in the day or whatever, it seems like every 10, 15, 20 years there was something pretty big, whether it be that first pandemic you mentioned, the Depression, some of the wars we went through, you know, and there's just a lot of people affected today, you know, in these uncertain times. You know, obviously a lot of folks have high school seniors this year, and they're worried about proms and all of that stuff. But man, you think back, you know, a lot of these kids today, you know, that are kind of in that same position, man, some of their grandparents or their grandfathers, you know, back in the 60s and early 70s, guess what they had to do as soon as they got out of high school, you know, went straight to Vietnam. And that really makes you think about things a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand, and hey, there's a lot of things I'd like to be doing right now too that are just kind of on hold, you know, but it is what it is. But it's like you said, this hound hunting community, man, it's good to see some of the things that you don't normally see. We criticize so much about the negative you see on social media. Right now, you're seeing a lot of good things.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm seeing a lot of good things.
Yep.
And that's
for
good
sure.
to see. Yep. Well,
so tell us what's going on with the hunting beagle events.
Well, hey, obviously we've got some pretty big programs there as well, and they're also affected significantly, you know. So some of the hunting beagle, the major events that are still on schedule as of right now, the state championships. We have Maryland. That's coming up the first weekend in May, so that one's going to be kind of iffy. But as of today, they are still on go. So that's Maryland, West Virginia, New York, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Iowa state championships. But here again, before somebody heads out to them, check that events calendar. In this case, go to the Beagle page on the UKC website. Make sure you check that calendar before you go. Other major events that are still on go is like the Bill McFarland Memorial, the Dale Prunty Classic, the Southern Classic in Virginia, the Don McVeigh Senior Memorial Hunt, and the Hunting Beagle World Championship. Those are still on go as of today. Hunting Beagle Nationals, which was scheduled for next weekend, middle of April here, that has been canceled, and we're not going to reschedule that one, unfortunately, for this year. Just too many other major events to reschedule, and trying to find a good place for it is just not, doesn't seem to be working very well. So that one will be canceled altogether for 2020, as well as NHBA days. NHBA is our National Hunting Beagle Association for the Hunting Beagle program, and they've also canceled their annual breed day event. But now that said, we've got some of the events that have been postponed and that are already rescheduled. Is the Ohio State Championship is May 23rd and 24th. Another one that is a National All-Star Series Chase. There's guys that were running for those points in 2019 that generally that chases ran off. The national runoff is held on the day before Hunting Beagle Nationals. So that has now been postponed to Thursday, September 10th, and will run alongside the McVeigh Memorial to be held at the fairgrounds in Coshocton, Ohio. So that chase will be held on Thursday, and we'll get all that information out to those 32 guys that are qualified for that, or 32 dog owners, I guess, and get them all that information. Basically, the first round is going to be run early in the morning on Thursday, and in the evening we will run the two final casts of the All Age and the Junior Series final cast in the evening on Thursday. In the middle of the day, the NHBA is working on some type of event, a hunting event that they will put on in the middle of the day on that Thursday. So one thing I like about, we're all trying to also work with the NHBA, UKC, and the folks, the McVeigh family with this. We can't appreciate how they've stepped up, the McVeigh family, and offered a slot for us at their event for a couple of things like this chase and working with the NHBA as well. So we really appreciate that. So that's when that's scheduled. The other one is the Feist World Championship that was scheduled for the 1st of March, or the 1st of April, I guess it was scheduled for. That obviously also got canceled. That's now postponed and rescheduled for December, and still at the same place, which is Mount Orab, Ohio. And then finally, our newest program is our gun dog program that we just kicked off this year, and was that's small pack option and gun dog brace trials. And we had a lot of traction going with that, a lot of interest, and had several trials scheduled for this spring. First one we held in the middle of March, and that one was in Georgia, had great entry for it. And I was actually down there for it, and it was on that Friday is kind of when a lot of this whole mandate thing started coming into play. And it seemed like on that Friday I was on my phone back to the office and taking other calls, from breed associations and, hey, what's going to happen? What do we got to do type of thing. But that all kind of came crashing down as far as the events that were scheduled for it this spring for the gun dog program. But hey, like I said, there was a lot of traction for it, and we've got a bunch of clubs already organized for it. But I encourage those clubs to send in their fall dates that they'd like to have scheduled, and we'll save all this energy for this fall, So hopefully, things don't change there. So, yeah.
Well, Alan, as I listen to you real quick here, Chris, as I listen to you go through that extensive schedule of all these major events and all, I got to say kudos to you guys at UKC for building such an amazing Beagle program. I remember the humble beginnings of that program, and when we sat down and started planning a Beagle program at UKC, and you guys have done a fantastic job with it, and I sure hope you can get that thing rolling again here soon. And it's really is impressive. You've done a good job.
Yeah. Well, it's a program that I have a lot of stake in, and I'm kind of known as the coonhound guy for the most part, but I've been affiliated with our Beagle programs, both personally before I worked up there, hunted a bunch of them, back in the day, and it's a big deal, and man, I love these Beagle events just as much as the coonhound events. They're a lot of fun. We have a lot of good folks in the Beagle in our Beagle trials and in our programs and everything. And yeah, so it's I love working with those guys all the same. Bunch of good guys, and I love these programs. And this newest one we've got, it's quite a bit different from our hunting Beagle format, but I've met a lot of those guys as well, and seemed like we had a good thing started there, and it really unfortunately just got this whole situation kind of crammed us here for the spring trials there. But a lot of good folks, and I'm sure love working with these Beagle guys as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have got things, good leadership, good plans. And the thing that I'm impressed with, Alan, is to hear the cooperation, just like you said about the McVeigh family, willing to do what they've got to do. This is a time for that, and we've got to make concessions and do what we have to do to be accommodating and try to keep this thing alive. So I think it's great work. I think you guys are doing a lot of good stuff up there. Tell us real quick where people can find the most up-to-date information about what's going on at UKC.
Yeah, just go to our website at ukcdogs.com, and from there, just go to the news sections. There you'll see the latest news that we have in regards to anything will be posted there as far as further information goes. That's where you need to go. And it doesn't matter if you go to coonhounds, beagles, squirrel dog stuff, it'll all be up there on those news pages there. But also, I really want to give a shout out to this. There's been a lot of work that that goes on to reschedule all this stuff. but I cannot thank our newest guy enough, and that's Trevor Wade. He came on this last year in 2019. He's predominantly working with the coonhound program stuff, and he has done an excellent job helping with all this stuff. And it's not just one person, it's my whole department, and he is a huge part of that. That guy is a workhorse, and I couldn't be more tickled to have him on board. Man, right now, if we didn't have him, I don't know where we would be. He has certainly been a huge help, and he deserves a lot of kudos for everything he's doing and working with this stuff. That guy's like I said, he's a workhorse, and he deserves a lot of credit for a lot of the work that's went into some of this stuff in the last several weeks.
Yeah, good deal. Steve?
Just a shout out to Trevor. Yeah, it seems like a great young man, a privilege to speak to him briefly, and that's great, Alan. Great. Well, no, I'm good. It's great to have Alan on and to get an update on UKC, and looks like you've got a good handle on this, Alan, and man, hopefully you get this thing all behind us. I can get back up to Michigan and do some hunting.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hopefully that'll everything will be back to normal by when that time comes this fall. You know, that's a good time. Right now is a good time to be hunting up here, but yeah, so hopefully things will be different soon. But before we go, we obviously also see a lot of guys out hunting, posting hunting clips and things like that on Facebook. Our media department would love to see or use some of those clips if guys want to tag UKC to some of those hunting clips that they're posting. By all means do so, and they can simply tag UKC by UKC Hunting Ops. UKC Hunting Ops is what they need to tag that, and they'd be tickled if you would allow them to use some of those videos of your pleasure hunts and all that. That's all one word. Or better yet, if you post some of those on Instagram, use that same hashtag for that. And yeah, they'd love to have some of those to post some of those pleasure hunts that the guys are out on during this time. And that goes for coon hunting, squirrel dogs, beaglers, everyone. You got some of those hunting videos, tag us on them, and we'd like to share some of your hunts.
Same goes for Houndsman XP. You can tag Houndsman XP podcast, and we will share your adventures as well. So I think we've got to stand together right now. You know, we've just all got to look and see how we can move this thing forward, because you touched on it, Alan. This is going to be a deal where everybody is going to be affected. I can't imagine. I talked to Seth Ish earlier in the week. He's our guest for the week that we're recording now, and I told his kids, you know, someday you're going to look back at this and think about, you know, what you went through, and it's going to make you stronger, and it's going to build character. And I think we're finding out that our young people are going to have to have an investment in the future of our country, and that's going to start with sacrifices right now. You know, we've got seniors that aren't going to go through graduation. My daughter finished up her bachelor's degree, and they had a commencement deal that they had scheduled. She's not going to be able to do that. So it's going to affect everybody, and we're all going to have our own stories to tell. But we can keep telling our stories on social media and getting the right message out there. And like you said, tag UKC Hunting Ops and tag Houndsman XP, and we will get that out there for you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, I have my nephew, my brother Paul's oldest boy, is getting married next Saturday, is his wedding day. So there's a lot of people in those type of positions as well. You
Absolutely.
Know, but, hey, you know, so that's there's a lot of things. You know, just everything is affected by it.
There's people. Go ahead, Steve.
I better mention our granddaughter, Caitlin. You know, she's a senior this year, class of 2020, to be her big year, you know, and she's very much involved in the color guard and band and all the competitions and all that stuff. So, you know, it's tough on these kids. We got to be concerned for them, you know. And then my brother was going to be down. The family was planning to come down for his nephew's wedding here, in a destination wedding here in Florida. That had to be we're all going through something, you know, but hey, we're here, we're talking, we're up. You know, as my friend Nubbin Moore says, and I don't mean to make light of this at all, but I'd say it's good to see you, Nubbin, and he'd say, it's better to be seen than viewed. So we just got to make the best, don't we?
And I'll just put a final thought of perspective from my standpoint, and not to get too dark, but when you're thinking about not being able to go to an event and how much it's affecting your life, small town like Rising Sun, we know when people pass and, loved ones aren't even allowed to bury their loved ones right now. So if you want to keep this thing in perspective, not have a proper funeral where you're honoring their memory. So without getting too dark, just keep that in perspective right now. Is it really that big a deal?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Steve, you got any final thoughts?
Well, my only final thing I have is our close. Are we ready for that?
I think we are.
Well, we have a tradition here on Houndsman XP about following our hounds. It may only be from the back door to the kennel, or from my case, from the den to the living room. But you follow your hound, and I'll follow mine.